Yes, so true. Yeah, and that's another great example of how just because you feel it, it doesn't mean it's accurate. And that's where I would encourage them to look at the evidence. And and then the second part is who's telling you that? That's probably just your own brain, and could you look at this from a growth mindset? Like, okay, yes, you're an expert in this field, but can you also continue to learn? Can you also continue to get better?
Today's guest of Relatable Wisdom is Erin Davis, a relationship coach and OCD therapist who helps women untangle from relentless doubts and step into deeper love and connection. With over a decade of guiding others toward peace and presence, Erin brings warmth, insight, and clarity. And today, she's here to share a quote that has left a lasting mark on her own life. Tell me your name and what you do.
My name is Erin Davis, and I'm the podcast host of Bossing Up Overcoming OCD. I'm a therapist in North Carolina, and I work with women to help them get untangled from their intrusive thoughts, their doubts, to help build confidence and come to a place where they're enjoying life again.
Okay. Work with women to help build confidence and come to a place where enjoy life again. Okay. So what's one of your favorite quotes?
One of my favorite quotes when I'm working with women who are struggling with a lot of big feelings is helping remind them that just because you feel something, that doesn't mean that it's accurate. Because what happens a lot of times for women is they get into a comparison trap. They're comparing themselves maybe to other women or other couples if they're in a relationship, or maybe it's intelligence. So all of this comparisonitis, like just because they feel like they're not enough, that doesn't mean that that's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you said you shared the quote. I want us to concretize it, right? To make it something that's, tangible. When you say feelings, what exactly do you mean? Can you give us an instance of what you're saying?
Sure. Yeah. With feelings, just that emotional experience where you feel down on yourself, you're not feeling good about who you are, you're second guessing, am I enough?
Okay. Let's do it this way. I'll come up with a lady name off the top of my head. Let's say we have a lady called Jane Doe. Hope none of your clients is named Jane Doe.
Right.
So they don't see we were talking about them on the podcast. Jane Doe, right? That's like the most generic name you can have for a lady. I would have said John Doe, but we're talking about a lady here. So Jane Doe. And could you create a scenario of instances of actual things, actual feelings they're actually going through, or specific stuff now? And then use that instances of their life to explain to me what it would mean for them to have feelings that are valid, but yet not accurate. So I can really, really understand what you mean.
Okay. So in the example of Jane Doe, let's say she's someone who feels like she may not be straight, okay? Because sexual identity comes up a lot, especially for people with OCD. And so she is doing a lot of checking to see if she's straight or to see if she is bisexual or homosexual or whatever sexuality. And because of those feelings, whenever she's doing the checking is creating a lot of stress. And that stress can start to take physical manifestations of chest tightness, inability to sleep. Maybe you don't feel like eating. And so even though she worries and feels like she may not be straight, that's not necessarily accurate, because what we do is we talk about values. Like, what are those things that you value? And with values, those are the things that light you up and make you feel like you're very in sync with yourself. So whenever you are doing things that you value, you're not experiencing distress. Okay. And so that's you have a question?
No, I'm digesting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So whenever you're doing things that you value, you feel very alive and vibrant. there's no distress. And so just because she may feel like she's not straight, that doesn't mean that that's accurate, because whenever she looks at her values, she can tell that she feels more whole or more like herself, more authentic to herself when she's with a man, for example, versus maybe sitting with a woman or watching something on TV and trying to check if she's having feel like attraction towards another woman.
Yeah. You said when you mentioned the quote, thought that ran through my head the first time is your feelings are valuable and not always accurate is sometimes, right? Okay, I'll give an example. Totally unrelated to what you do and the example you give, but the thought that ran through my head was every time I'm about to start a podcast, right? I feel that the conversation is going to be terrible. It's a small feeling like before I hop on a call with any guest, right? There's this feeling that
Sure.
I mean, maybe the conversation is going to be really dry. The guest is just going to be rambling. You know how you ask. Okay, I don't know if are you a podcast host?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you understand what I'm saying? Where you ask a guest one question and they just go on talking for the next 10 minutes, and you start asking yourself, how can you even do that? And you're trying like find a way to get in and like no, 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 and so despite me having that feeling that, oh yeah, and I just asked myself, now I'm privileged to be in a place where I've done it several times, that I have several evidence that's prove otherwise. But not everybody not everybody is in a privileged position. It's probably your first time doing it, so they don't have these sets of evidence to say, oh no, you've done over 100 podcast episodes. Out of that 100, 97, 98 was really, really incredible conversation. I mean, the other two, was terrible, but maybe they were just having a bad day, right? And
Sure.
I show up and it's a great conversation, but the feeling is there nevertheless. And I know that, like, yeah, I'm like, just, how somebody starts talking and you just look at them and tell them, shut up your mouth, shut up.
Yeah. Podcasting is not easy. It's not always easy. And yeah, there are guests from time to time that seem to just dominate the conversation. It's hard to get a word in edgewise. But yeah, so some of these doubts that come up for you, our brain is designed to find problems because that's what helps us survive. And so even though you've had this problem one or two times out of 200, it was nevertheless a problem. And so your brain is trying to prepare you for this problem. And that's okay. Like that's just part of the survival and you wanting to create a great show for your audience.
Yeah. And now that you explained that, I just remember something that majority of my audience would really relate with. And that is, I feel like an imposter. I am not good enough. I am not, quote unquote, an expert.
Yes, so true. Yeah, and that's another great example of how just because you feel it, it doesn't mean it's accurate. And that's where I would encourage them to look at the evidence. And then the second part is who's telling you that? That's probably just your own brain, and could you look at this from a growth mindset? Like, okay, yes, you're an expert in this field, but can you also continue to learn? Can you also continue to get better?
Yeah. There's this statement. It's what's the word? Usually it's a bold and it's a defiant something like that statement where you let's say you're sharing with me and you're like oh, I had a great day, and you're just telling me a story, and after you see everything and I tell you, and so right now I don't know sometimes there's certain peculiar statements we use over here that it might not mean the same thing in your end, right? And I look at you and I'm like, and so what? Yeah, right? But it's like, and so that's the statement. Like when you're saying, oh yeah, you're not good enough. Why should you be starting a podcast? Look, who gave the permission to start a podcast? And I look at you and I'm like, and so,
I love it.
And that's the same statement we should be telling ourselves. And like, oh, you're not an expert. And so it's not like, we're not like saying, oh, that stuff is not true. Or, sorry, that stuff is not, most persons, they want to like deny that, the existence of that, oh, you're not an expert. You just discovered this, hobby yesterday and now you're talking about it online. And you're like, yeah. And so, right. So it's not like,
Right.
because most times people try to run from it, and guess what happens? It ends up hunting them down. You can't run from it. Like, yeah. And so,
Yes, that's such a great way to like respond to that situation because you're like basically saying, so what?
Yeah, so what? Yeah. Yeah, that's another statement. I'm like, yeah, so what? Yeah, because I notice a lot of persons, right? And this is for the content creation, right? They're like, oh, English is my second language. I cannot really speak English very well. I don't pronounce the words very well and all that. And I'm like, and so? And I'm like, but when I say it like that way, because one of the things I've noticed, right, in this 8 day period is that the human mind is our greatest asset, and is also our greatest liability. I don't want to use the word liability in because I need to clarify what I mean by liability, because the human mind can work for you and it can work against you.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, the mind, right? Because the tools in making content and doing businesses, they're getting easier and easier every day. Yet a lot of persons are still afraid to step out, to create, to do the things they need to do. Why? Because it's in the mind.
Absolutely. I mean, our mind can be, as you're saying, like our greatest asset, or it can be the thing that holds us back. And it's so wonderful to see people when they truly step into their power and start to take their mind in a direction that it works for them and not against them. It's really empowering, or it's just really exciting to see when people fully step into their power and they have their mind work for them and not against them.
Yeah. What's the second quote you mentioned earlier on in the prequel?
That just because you think it doesn't mean it's true.
Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. These quotes, I feel like they're not even the different quotes, right? They should be attached together. They're like first paragraph, second paragraph, first sentence, second sentence, right? Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true, right? It takes us back to the example I was giving, where I'm like, this interview is going to be terrible, right? I'm going to freeze and stuff like that, and I'm like, nah.
Yes, yeah, and whenever you focus on that negative energy, that tends to give us like just a different vibe, like we tend to show up in that way. But if we can get our mind in a place of like, this is going to go well, I'm going to do great, or, I'm going to get that relationship, or I'm going to ask that girl out, or whatever the situation looks like. If you can get your mind moving in the direction of where you really want to end up, you'd be surprised at how you then show up, because you're going to feel a lot more empowered and a lot more excited versus like, oh, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's a good thing you mentioned that, because this year has been a year where you know how there's a statement that there are decades where nothing happened, and there are weeks where decades happen.
Oh gosh, yeah.
This year has been that year where decades happen in weeks, because most of the things that I realized that people, I'll give an example. People will tell you that, oh, I'm using 6 months to start a podcast. Or I'm thinking I'm branding and doing all those things for 6 months. And guess what? To start a podcast in if your life depended on the podcast, you can start it in less than 3 hours.
Absolutely.
And have your first 2 episodes live. But you're like, oh no, you have to try. And then you take 8 months and 9 months, and eventually you start the podcast, and you realize that it wasn't that big of a deal.
Oh gosh, so true. And you're better off going ahead and starting. And this is some of the things that I talk about with my clients, because again, going back to that evidence, you need more information to make essentially an informed decision. And without getting the information, you're never truly going to know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a perpetual cycle, and it's a trick. It's just like if I want to start a podcast and I've never podcasted in my life, guess what? I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Of course you don't know how to do this. You know how to do it by doing it, and then I don't do it. And so because I don't do it, I don't know how to do it. And because I don't know how to do it, I never get to do it. Whereas it's more like, because people feel that, oh, I need to feel confidence. Confidence comes from immeasurable amount of evidence, such that you're like, no, I've done over 1,000 episodes. I'm a podcaster. Like, what are you telling me? Stop that nonsense.
Yes, so true. And, once you give it a try, whatever it is, once you try, you get evidence, you get more information, essentially more data, and then you can pivot, you can adjust, you can grow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. You can pivot, you can grow. I mean, I feel like people I feel like this feelings, right? Quote unquote feelings, this just because you think it, and these thoughts, right? They're not exactly our thoughts. They are society, neighbors, the people who bullied us, people who rejected us, all these voices combined and dropped into our mind, into our head. And so guess what? You rather start a podcast. I'm like, but I'm this. And I guess what, you think you're the one thinking. It's not you. There's a voice of society in your head that always try to reject you.
Yes. And, with OCD, we talk about the OCD bubble. And in the OCD bubble, it's like you're in a movie. Because, whenever you watch a movie, you feel very enchanted by it, like you feel like you're in it. And that's what the OCD bubble can be like. It's full of doubts and stories, and it's taking you down this path of I'm this kind of terrible person. But that's not true. And so we talk about crossing the bridge back into reality, back into the here and now, and being real about who you are, what you love, and what you value, because all these stories in your mind are just your imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it happens so much that people start saying, "Oh, I don't do this, I don't do that," and I'm like, "Says who?" Right? Yeah, I feel like
It sounds like
this is a topic we could keep discussing for hours.
yeah. So it sounds like you do a good job of what I call bossing back to the negative thoughts.
Wait, wait, you talking to me right now?
Yeah, seriously.
I thought you were talking to the listeners.
No.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. I don't know if you meant it as a compliment, but I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah, thank you.
example of how to boss back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the podcast. I'm here to have fun, right? And just have fun, be curious, and yeah, we'll have a conversation. And the thing here is that I just realized that we've not even scratched the surface of the of the quote, and it's almost time.
Okay.
Yeah. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they do that?
Yes, you can find me on all podcast platforms, Bossing Up Overcoming OCD. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook at Erin Davis Coaching, and that's ERIN.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much for sharing your quotes with me. And yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.